I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Mr. Charlie Kaufman. Give us a little bit about that.
Right up front, this is one of my favorite movies of the entire year. But the basic premise is a young couple, Jesse Plemons and Jesse Buckley, are just going to the family farm home of Jesse Plemons' parents to meet them for the first time. They've been dating for like 6, 7 weeks. It's time to meet the parents. But along the way, this young girl, Lucy, she internally doubts the future of the relationship. And as that doubt grows, the environment around her begins to change. Little things at first, obviously, but then big, confusing things. And not only leads her to question the nature of her relationship, but to question the nature of her own existence. And if that sounds heavy, you must have never seen a Charlie Kaufman movie before. That's all I can say.
Because Charlie Kaufman, just to give people some background, so he did Being John Malkovich, he wrote that. He also wrote Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which is a terrific movie. Then he did Synecdoche, New York. This is him directing once again. Did you think that this was kind of a more mature picture from the previous one?
I mean, I read a recap on the AV Club just a couple days ago. They did their list of the best films of the year, and one of the funniest things they pointed out was reminding us that Charlie Kaufman once lost an Oscar to Inside Out back in 2016. Inside Out won for animated feature, and it was up against Anomalisa that Charlie Kaufman did. And it's funny because Inside Out is about exploring the inner workings of the mind. And that's been Charlie Kaufman's entire career, basically. And he's better than basically anyone at illustrating these abstract thoughts in a vacuum as characters, as set pieces, as plot developments. Whether you're watching Being John Malkovich or Adaptation or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. He's been doing this his entire career. I once wrote that if I ever got to work with him for a day, I'd either become a genius or go completely insane. There's no middle ground. As far as maturity, it's one of the pervading themes of the film, actually, because throughout the whole course, we're wondering just where Jesse Plemons' character is as a matter of his own personal development. And that's illustrated both in the car ride over, the dinner with his parents, just wonderful, fully animated and committed performances from Toni Collette and David Thewlis. And there's also a remote high school that's putting on a production of Oklahoma. And there's this sad janitor who's kind of watching everything almost like a voyeur, while also fantasizing in the break room watching Robert Zemeckis films for looking for that delightfully schmaltzy ending. It's an exploration of basically how a mind can progress and how revisionist our own histories can be when left to our own devices. The fragmented nature of memory as a whole, because it's not linear. You don't go A to B to C. You think about something that happened last week, then something that happened last year, then something that happened an hour ago. It's very disjointed, but the genius mind that is Charlie Kaufman is able to bind it into a cohesive whole. And I don't think anybody else could have done it this way.
I feel like with his films, like I remember seeing Eternal Sunshine and thinking, this is like a deconstruction of a genre. This is like a deconstruction of a romance or deconstruction of a romantic comedy. With Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, it has that same, stream of consciousness quality to it, which I guess is like a hallmark of his. But a lot of people said that this is one of those films that you can't just watch it once, and that maybe that's why I haven't decided to see it yet, because it's one of those, like, it's a commitment kind of movie. Do you feel that too?
Yeah, and deconstructions and stream of consciousness, those are really good terms to describe this. And I know this. I remember this from my high school days. I hate reading stream of consciousness, like Sound and the Fury, James Joyce. I hated reading those novels because it was hard to visualize a stream of consciousness in my own head. Charlie Kaufman is able to properly visually represent this idea in a way that's relatable and understandable, whether it's the use of the 3:4, the 4:3 aspect ratio, basically making the scene more and more compact, in essence, trapping you inside your own thoughts, or just something as random as picking up a book and seeing, oh, it's essays by Pauline Kael, and then Jesse Buckley reciting one of them verbatim in the car scenes later. I was like, it makes you wonder, like, well, who would memorize Pauline Kael? You know, I was like, no disrespect to Pauline Kael, but it's like, if you think I'm verbose, you know, like, you know, every essay she writes is like 10 Hamlet soliloquies. So there's a whole lot to parse with that, but yet here's this character just randomly having an argument with her boyfriend and showing legit chemistry while they do it. I mean, she's doubting whether she can keep this relationship going, but these arguments actually show there's that right kind of chemistry and relationship quality to it. And then she just up and recites, you know, just up and recites a Pauline Kael essay. Sure. You go have dinner with your parents, and in one moment, they're about the proper age for parents to a 25-year-old. Then they're in their 60s. Then they're teenagers again in the next scene. And then there's conversations about dementia and Alzheimer's, which on a personal level I've had to deal with this year. So it's a little bit, it definitely hit home for me. And I'm sure it would hit home for a lot of other people who've dealt with those issues. It's, again, this insane relatability on the honest, most abstract of issues that honestly makes it comforting as well as insightful.
It sounds really good. I definitely want to check it out. I would say that you'd have your recommendation on it.
Yeah, and you definitely need to watch it more than once to pick up everything. There's so much going on in every scene, which makes it even more astounding that it's mostly done in 4x3. Because you're packing a lot of stuff into such a small space, physically, figuratively, and literally.
It sounds interesting, and you know, in that 4x3 aspect ratio too. It's also like kind of more TV friendly. Like maybe it's a movie you don't need to see on a big giant screen.
There's definitely an economy of space there, and for those of us who grew up watching movies on TV, I mean, there's a really good moment towards the end where basically they reenact this big dance number moment from Oklahoma with shades of An American in Paris added to it. That if you ever watched, you know, Turner Classic Movies growing up, it was like you've seen this. If you ever watched the Saturday afternoon movie of the week when the football games rained out or whatever, that you've seen this exact kind of aspect ratio.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to see the movie. I'll check it out, and you know, your review is on your website.
Yes, and I believe it's on yours as well.